You are listening to Been There, Done That. We present some of the smartest people connected to the business of coffee. People who've succeeded in the tough grind of hospitality by staying ahead of the rest. So join us as we explore the secrets to their success and help you accelerate your business. This show is brought to you by the Coffee Commune, where the coffee community comes to collaborate. Enjoy the show.
Hi, this is Phil DiBella, and you're listening to another episode of Been There, Done That. Exactly what we do. We bring people to the microphone who have been there and done that. And continuing on from loving telling successful stories, we have our final segment in this space and two young, ambitious people that I'll introduce in 2 seconds. But they're going to share their story and come from different backgrounds. And again, the spirit of this episode is about telling stories of people that are out there and having a go. People that start with a vision, they do the grind, they do the hard work, they get in the arena, and they've actually doing things. So others talk, some do, and the lovely gentleman and lady I have in front of me have certainly achieved some success and will continue to do so. So let me introduce you to Mikella Esposito and Laurence Santini from Como Restaurant. And if you haven't been there, you should. Good Italian food by good Italian people. Mikella's background was she's comes from a family of hospitality, but comes from an entrepreneurial family, good values, Italians, and has a love for fashion and food. Welcome to the show, Mikella.
Well, hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. And Laurence, a law background. You got too much personality for a lawyer.
Yeah, maybe.
We're talking short period, but yeah, you got your law degree, you practiced for a while, and then said, hey, I want to do something different. And of course, no doubt using all your skills in a positive way, hopefully.
What Italian doesn't love food?
In the Italian restaurant. And of course, what Italian doesn't love food and, and seeing the joys and that. So Como Restaurant, you big guys have been around now. How long? When did it start?
A year. We've been around for a year and a little bit now.
Yeah, so fairly new, right?
Yeah.
It's and the first year is normally the toughest. And I see you guys have kicked some really, really good goals and got a lot of loyal people coming. And we'll unpack that a little bit today. We'll talk a little bit about, making difficult decisions. We'll talk about what do you do when things go wrong, and how do you, challenging old ways with new ways. And you guys are the perfect young people to talk to this about. And I love that because what I want to do to set the scene is to, a lot of what we're doing obviously is, with Been There, Done That, is to bring people with experience to the show. And a lot of it is focused on fixing problems. And then we had a couple of our listeners say, hey, you know what? We love what you're doing. We love the fact that you're helping us with problems and all the rest of it. Hey, how about running a segment on telling some positive stories? And that's why you're in front of us, right? You're a positive story. It's a young story, which is great. And why is that great? Let me tell you, because some of the facts you might not know. Last year was the first year in small business across Australia where it was in deficit, which meant there was more closed than open. And I've been talking about this in the last, 12 to 18 months, is that if people like myself and other people in the industry that have been around for a long time don't do their bit to help the industry, then we won't have an industry in 15 and 20 years because we won't get the young people inspired. So when you guys contacted me and I said, yes, definitely, young business, young people, you guys are there having a go. We want to see more of that. So enough about my purpose, because I'm being selfish, that's why I wanted you on the show, is for that particular reason. I want people listening to this. I want people listening to your story and going, no, we know it's not going to be easy, but hey, we've got a vision. We're giving it a go. And when things go wrong, we work on getting it right. And of course, when things are going right, you enjoy the fruits of that. How does that sound?
It sounds good.
All right. Well, in 60 seconds, tell us about yourself. We've got to let ladies go first. So Mikella, 60 seconds, tell the listeners about you.
About me.
And this is not this is your life, right? So it's 60 seconds.
60 seconds. No, so I've had, I didn't go to uni. I've always been a little bit more creative. I met Laurence and he was stuck into his law degree, and I, growing up, always saw my dad in business, and he got approached to do something a little bit obscure. We're in construction, so this is a bit left field for us, but I thought there would be nothing more fun to jump on the train and do it with Laurence, and here we are today.
So
Definitely,
it's a hospitality love story.
Yeah, a little bit.
We'd
Already been dating 4 years before we decided to go on the venture, but no, it's definitely when people say, like, I say it's like having a first child before anything.
Yeah. Don't worry, we'll unpack that, the trials and tribulations, because I've worked with my wife for a long time too. We've been married 22 years, so we're doing okay. But don't worry, it hasn't come without its trials and tribulations. So, Laurence, tell me, 60 seconds, tell the audience a bit more about yourself.
Well, I think for Mickey and I, it's always been about food and entertainment. We love entertaining people. It's what we've loved to do. I mean, occupationally, I worked in law, and I love that. And I loved the people side of it too, more than anything. That connection and that, putting people in your arms and looking after them was so cool. And so when this came across both of us, I said to Mickey, we got to do it. We got to jump on this.
Have a dinner party every night.
Yeah. It's actually a great way to look at it, right?
Yeah, no, I do.
And how old are you both, right? Not a rude question, I just want to...
Yeah, I just turned 24. And
I'm still 23, but I'm 24
I love it. I love it. And I'll tell you what, guys, it wasn't a rude question because a lot of people get funny about age. I started my business at 26. And to me, a sign of aspiration is 20-year-olds wanting to own their own business. So congratulations to you. And as I said, that really cements the ethos of why. There's always got to be a why and a purpose in why we do stuff. And that's the purpose of my why now, is accelerating people's potential, helping that next generation say, I don't expect it to be easy, but, I have a vision and I want to be in business. And you don't have to be in your own business. You could, as Richard Branson says, the entrepreneur, you can actually go and work for somebody and be quite entrepreneurial within their business as well. But the gist of it is ambition and inspiration, because that's something that's getting crushed at the moment. So that's why the question about the age, and I want the listeners to really understand that. Here's two people from two different backgrounds with a vision, having a go in business now for 12 months in your own restaurant. Great job. So let's unpack it. So making difficult decisions for the greater good of the business. Let's share an example through a tough decision you've had to make in the last 12 months for the business, and how did you get to that? So
we came in very, very green to the situation. Like, even my dad, he had a little bit of hospitality background, but definitely...
It was your granddad that previously
so my grandfather owned one of the first Italian restaurants in Lygon Street called Petto's.
One of the famous ones.
One of the famous ones. Like, my dad does famously talk about anytime he'd go back, even when grandfather wasn't a part of the business anymore, he was like, the red carpet was always rolled out.
Yeah, traditions.
Traditions. And entertaining food has always been, like we were saying, big
so you
part
come
of
into
our...
the business, and what are you faced with?
We're faced with, I think, firstly, it's having your original idea. So your original thought and what you think the restaurant's going to be. So you may sit there and plan and go, this is what we're going to bring to West End. But when you start trading, and when the ball starts moving and time then eventually goes on, and the hype of being a new restaurant falls down, what does the West End community actually want from you? And that's what you need to think about, because at the end of the day, we may have an idea, but our idea also has to involve people.
And you experienced that? You opened with obviously your ideas and your thoughts, and then had to make some changes?
Yeah, well, we had our head chef and we loved him. He was great for what our first brain thought for Como. But as time went on, we could see that our West End community, and that's what it's about, it's feeding our community.
Yes.
It was becoming more one of those places where people were going, okay, this is only for a really special occasion. Or I'm going to go dine here before the ballet. Like, not even fun theatre things. It became an occasion restaurant. It became an occasion restaurant.
A feed me social restaurant, community restaurant.
Yeah, and we are very warm. Like, I always feel food tells such a story.
Well, you said it. You want a dinner party every night.
Exactly.
It's a great
love
line.
entertaining. I love it. It does stress me out, but I love entertaining. As I always call it, pre-show jitters, where the cleaning. The Italian mum always taught me, well, you must clean underneath your bed.
You're way beyond your years, right? Which is quite refreshing to see.
But yeah, I think the first big change that we had to make, or when Isaiah was telling us that he was leaving for Italy due to his own family issues, we then found a new chef. And it was Isaiah's sous chef, so who he started with. So we had completely capacity just to keep going, keep doing the same menu, not changing, but really taking a step back, taking our own self needs and wants away from it and going, no, we need to make a change. We need to be a bit more creative. We need to get in touch.
You have to give the customers what they want.
Yeah, and in touch with our roots again a little bit. I think we sort of steered away from that.
Yeah. So Laurence, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I think writing a realistic business plan is probably one of the most important things that most people skip over, especially younger people when starting a venture. And I think that for us is probably the biggest thing we did when we took over, It was like, okay, let's sit down, let's take a deep breath. We've achieved so much already. It's been really cool. But as you know, and as we know, we're new. And we were like, we have a fresh perspective. Everything we're doing, we can do it brand new. We can do whatever we want. You can follow the trends, you can create them. So we sat down, we wrote what we want the restaurant to look like, and taking into mind that it is an occasion restaurant. And you said it, but I say it all the time as well. It's not a restaurant with a car park where you come with your family and kids, although it can be, right? But it's a restaurant that requires an Uber. It's a restaurant that requires probably a drink. You want to go out, dress nice, right, most of the time. So it's a restaurant that we require to bring people to, rather than your local eatery. Yes. So I think
people don't just pop in; they plan to come there.
I think now we're building, like that was one of our goals, is to build that Western community, and by doing little things like our Munga Munga evening, where it's endless bowls of spaghetti, and Laurence and I, we wanted to do something like that because when you go to Nonna's house,
that's it.
She is coming out with
that's
endless
all my kids
bowls.
keep hearing from Nonna is Munga
Munga. Or anytime, if you go there and you make the world's biggest mistake of eating beforehand, you're in trouble. Oh, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Or, you know.
So you want to bring that stuff to the table. And what I'm hearing there for the listeners to really understand is I talk about a model that you've got to solve a problem and you've got to be relevant, right?
Yeah.
So you can open with your own vision. You did that. You then said, right, we've got to adjust this vision because now we've got to deliver what the people want. And then you're obviously building the relevance, like your Munga Munga things, your menu now, obviously design, your opening hours, all that sort of stuff. We've got to match the demand. What I've really started to talk about now in 2025, and it's the first time because it's our first podcast I'm recording for the year. So listeners will get to hear it for the first time along with you guys, is it's actually more simplified now. What I say to people in any industry is you've got to have a demand. So if you're looking at going into business, you got to have a look at, is there a demand for this? Right? And you really got to identify, you've got to get the ego out of the way, and you've got to say, none of this bullshit, I'm going to open a restaurant, my food will be better than someone else, my sauce will be better, and blah, blah, blah. That's all bullshit. Get your ego out of the way because you're going to lose a lot of money. What is the demand that exists in your community that you're going to fill? Once you identify that, part two is to build the products and services, which is what you're doing. You're refreshing the products and services because a lot of it obviously was working. Part two is to refresh the products and services that will meet that demand, right? That's part two. And then part three, which is the glue that puts it all together, is the right people.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the segue to a question I want to ask you about people, right? If you don't have the right people to execute your products and services to the demand that you're filling, then it all falls over. So for people listening, and because we get a lot of listeners in this that aren't just in restaurant, they're in hospitality, they're tourism, they're professional services. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, it doesn't matter if it's construction. What is the demand? What are the product services that you're offering to fill that? And then how do you put it together with the right people? So let's segue. Laurence, we'll kick off with you. How do you involve the team in the decision-making process, right? Because a lot of people say, oh, no, but, 20-year-olds know everything. They just go a bull at a gate, they go ahead, whereas I know you guys are quite collaborative. Tell the listeners the importance of being collaborative and how you guys go about it.
I started my hospitality journey at Brisbane City Football Club, the local Italian football club.
I used to sponsor them. I used to play there.
Yeah. No, my dad's now the
corporate sponsor.
He's the corporate.
I was
we love Brisbane
I was the
City.
team leader of the canteen, and then I moved from there to Grilled, and then I got poached and I got moved to Burger Urge. So that was my career in hospitality before I went to law. And so nothing essentially in terms of running the restaurant and having an idea of stock and everything. So not that we rely and we depend on our staff, but we really do put an emphasis on leaning our staff and rewarding them for their knowledge. And we had at the start different people, and as we've come in, we've brought in new people with the acute, interests and skills that we need. Mm-hmm. We found one particular girl who will be watching this podcast, but she is a fantastic section waiter, and she came to us. She had previously been a junior sommelier at Bianca. And, we've got all this beautiful Italian wine. And part of a recalibration for us was, of course, being able to sell it because a lot of Australians really want Australian and New Zealand wines. So it is a bit hard to sell your French Burgundies and your red wines and your Italian wines.
You've got to be a talented wait staff to do that.
And so we have this girl come along, section waiter, and she has all the knowledge in the world about Sardinian wines, every Italian wine, every dessert wine, everything like that. And it's the people like that you got to find that fit into your business model. I do a lot of what I do in that restaurant, like how I play FIFA career mode. Mm-hmm. You build your team, you're the coach, you build your team and you got to fit in the right spot.
I love the analogy.
You need your striker, you need your goalkeeper, you need all the positions, right, to fill.
Everyone has a different personality, and everyone is going to have their strengths and weaknesses, but how you harness each and everyone's going to be managed differently. Everyone's going to receive information and thrive differently. And I myself, like I learned that. I used to work at Clexco, so that's my stint in fashion, and I had Hannah as my, I'm sure some of your listeners may know.
Yep, I know them very well.
Hannah and Nikki, and like how Hannah, especially with our girl team, every one of us, she would treat differently. And in the beginning, you'd be like, what? But she knew we all responded to different types of...
Which actually meant that she cared about the individual
100%,
because she didn't want to treat you the same way she treated someone because your needs are different.
She knew I was a sensitive being sometimes, and I needed a hug, and sometimes where she could be tougher on us. But within that, you build a team that is going to work hard for themselves because they want to work hard for you, but then also be able to collaborate together as a team.
And there's a lot of work coming out in that now. I mean, I do a lot of work with performance coaches, IRs, HRs, and they're saying that now, right? Like this whole one blanket fits all. They've now realised that is not the case, and I've been like that for a long time. I've had blanket templates I've always used is the more you put into the business, the more the business will put into you.
Yeah.
The more resources you put into the business, the more the resources the business put into you. And resources is money. Resources is time. Resources is energy. Resources is ambition.
Yeah.
Resources is, referrals. So the more resources you contribute, so the more that you contribute to this business, the more the business is going to contribute to you.
Yeah.
And it's based on that because some people just want to turn up and do the bare minimum, no problems. But I'm going to reward the people that are going to come. And again, reward is not just money because they've proven that it's not all about the money.
No.
That I'm going to reward the ones that go above and beyond because that's the way it should be. Because otherwise there is discrimination by treating everybody exactly the same way.
We do a great job of that, I'd say.
I think we do.
Like we love rewarding our good stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's
good.
something I get. So like if you're going to put that effort into our business, which we love, and you're going to show us that you love us just as much, I will reward you for that.
Yeah.
We are not greedy people at all.
Yeah.
No.
And I think like in hospitality, I always say there's like pirates and soldiers, right? And there's no discrimination between the two. You can have a pirate that's better than a soldier, and I think staff are so interesting like that, and their personalities are so, like it's really is what Mikella said, how you harness people. Because you can have someone who's a bit rough around the edges, a bit different, a little bit edgy, right? But it's how you use that personality on the right tables,
Correct.
with the right guests.
And remember that emotions are compounding.
Yeah.
True.
And I want listeners to think about that comment. Emotions are compounding. So if it's a positive emotion, that'll compound for greatness. If it's a negative emotion, then it's going to spiral you downwards. So it's where your awareness goes, your energy flows, where you harness that focus. And if you guys are treating people well because they treat the business well, then that'll compound in a positive way.
And just sort of helping guide. I think now we're refining our team and we're surrounding ourselves because like we were saying, we are green, but with people that do know more than us. And that's at times, I think people find that an intimidating or scary thing, but
Not at all.
not in my eyes, it's not at all. Like I will tell our staff, just because I am me does not mean if you see me doing something incorrectly, like setting a or if I've just talking to you whilst setting something and I've done it wrong, do not feel like because I am me that you can't go,
No,
Mikella, tell me, pull me up.
Or another
I
analogy is
want
like
to
your
learn.
concert band. Your drummer, I'm sure the person playing the guitar can play the drums, but not as good as the drummer, right? The drummer's there for a reason. The guitar player's there for a reason. The trumpet's there for a reason. The conductor's there for a reason.
Exactly.
Because they're specialists. So it's that analogy. Soccer's no different. They can all play all positions. They can even play keeper. But the best keeper's chosen, and that comes into play. And it's a good point you make, Mikella, because what happens is people get scared of hiring people that have the skills that they don't have,
100%.
right? And you need people with different skills in your organisation to put a team together.
And I think in that, my dad taught me that. Watching my dad grow his company, like he is a fantastic, my dad can read a room and he's very good with people and he is a front-facing person. And he'll be able to schmooze and network anything. But without his team, we'd still be Imperial Coatings, not Imperial Core. You have to entrust in good people around you to build you up and to be fair to your staff and reward them. Like I say to all my guys, growing up, watching my dad, my mum and dad, they built it together. But my dad, in his company right now, has apprentices that I remember. they were apprentices, has boys that were his apprentice back in like when I was probably like 6 years old in my pajamas, come to our house, drive into work with them. Now these guys have followed my dad through all companies, and now the majority of those apprentices are all of our top foremen for painting. Mm-hmm. And it just shows that, you know, the nurture that you give people and how you reward and uplift when people are doing a good job. Don't just, it's not for him and I just to have the conversation. You need to let those people know, because when you are working for others, sometimes it does feel, you know, like you're slogging and you're not going to get that bit of gratification for your hard work that you're putting in, but it's a team effort.
Totally.
We all
and
need
then
to.
I always say, if you're not rewarding them in terms of, you know, telling them when they're doing a good job, then you don't have the right to tell them when they're doing a bad job.
Exactly.
You know, I always say 90% of my job when I'm leading an organisation, 90% of my role is to pick out the 10% we've got to do better. But in saying that, I've got to praise the 90% we're doing well. I can't just keep going in and go, well, this is the 10% we've got to get better. Yeah. Otherwise it loses its validity. Yeah. Let's change speed a bit. Let's talk about when shit goes wrong. So, you know, failure is part of the journey. I failed a few times. Others have failed more. Some have failed less. Failure is part of the journey. I always say failure is a problem when you've done it 2 or 3 times. The first time we do something wrong, we don't normally know it's wrong. Tell us about, you know, something that's failed, you know, or didn't go as planned in the last 12 months, you know, and how you came back from that, and especially around morale. Yeah. Because, again, you keep saying, you know, people look at us and say we're green, pressure, they look at you, something fails, and then morale can drop or morale can increase. Talk us through it.
So when we started coming into the fold in the restaurant, we quickly reduced our hours and started to be a bit more efficient with how we timelined our week. And so we're open Wednesday to Sunday, lunch and dinner. And so we started to put pins around what are the areas where we're slower and how do we pick those up. So going back to the Munga Munga promotion, Munga Munga Endless Spaghetti, it's our Wednesday night tradition at Como. And as Mickey was intimating to before, for us, it was something at the start, we were like, let's do a really cool combo promotion. So we did the pasta with the meatballs and the bread. And it was a little bit higher priced, and we put it out. And it was a very snap decision. It was something that we went to pretty quickly. Yeah. We posted it. It didn't do really well on the numbers. And we sort of sat back. And this is the thing about Mickey and I, is we are never shy of recalibration and rethinking and recreating.
Oh, no, if I don't like it, I'll take it off Instagram and repost it.
Yeah, and we thought about it, and we thought, well, hold on. Let's actually create some real value here. What do we want out of this? Like, what is this, and why is it so appealing to people?
And why is it appealing to us? Like, why are we referring to Munga Munga? Like, we knew without knowing, because we were just trying to think quick, like, let's get people through the door. Yeah. And when you stopped, and I was like, hey, what does Munga Munga mean to us?
Like, what is it going to mean to us? So I thought about it, and for me, it was Wednesday nights at Nonna's house where, as Mickey was saying, the bowl doesn't stop. There's no end. Nonna would always bring out meatballs on the side. We'd have those with some bread. We'd mop it up together. And then she'd have secondi in the oven. And we spoke with Enzo as well, and we said, why don't we do like an endless spaghetti night, or like a bottomless spaghetti? Yeah. And we were like, that's actually pretty cool, because people want to come in, they want to compete for that. And it has that Nonna vibe of the whole restaurant.
Family.
It
changes the speed, right?
Yeah.
It's a family.
We're here
community.
to fill you up. We're going to give you what our tradition was, and you can all enjoy that together in the local community.
And then the first week, our nonnas came in and did help prep the meatballs.
Love it.
And we took photos, and they love it. Yeah. And I think
when we reposted,
it went crazy. And then we had Ebony,
some influencers come in. Yeah. And
well, let me introduce you to something again that I'll share for the first time on a podcast. And I really want you to hone in on this, right? And it'll really upskill. And anytime you're stuck with something, I want you to write this down, all right? And then put underneath it. There is no movement without meaning. So think about that. So what you've just explained right there is you did the same thing. You just did it different.
Yeah.
Now, because why? You added meaning to it. So the first time you did it, it didn't have a meaning to a customer.
It wasn't
had
even
meaning
fun
to you,
for us.
but it didn't have meaning to a customer, so it generated no movement. The moment you attached a meaning to it, the moment you grabbed that meaning and you told the story, which is what marketing is, telling a story so compelling that people emotionally engage. They emotionally engaged with it, you generated a movement. So I want you to do that, and listeners, you guys as well. Sit down and write it. There is no movement without meaning. So therefore, when you have a look at what you're doing or what dilemma you faced that's with the kids, family, on your own, as a relationship, individually, with your parents, grandparents, is what are their meaning in this and what's the movement, and reverse engineer it. The movement I want to generate, how do I create the meaning for that person? Yeah. Because that will put you and will fast track and accelerate your potential moving forward in the next 12 months, the next 24 months, and all the rest of it. Because people's needs will change in the restaurant. People's wants will change in the restaurant. 100%. And you've still got to stick to your core values, but you've also got to adapt. No customer, no business. Because I've seen a lot of my coffee colleagues around the world, and let alone Australia, they say, how did you go from a startup? I'm not sure if you're aware of my story. Started from nothing to Australia's biggest coffee company, right? And with $5,000. That's the magic, is that I was taking on the multinationals, people like that are friends now, like Lavazza, Giuseppe Lavazza reaches out and all that sort of stuff. They were competitors and they had big pockets to squash me, and big brands. Lavazza's still the biggest brand in the world. But what we did is, when I look back, is we generated a movement through meaning. And that meaning for me was cafe owners. We helped cafe owners make money. Yeah. But you've really got to hone in on that meaning, focus on that movement, and solve the needs of a customer, not the needs of yourself.
Even in that, what Laurence has said, I think that's a very recent experience. But when I look at one of our big, what we have overcome in that light, I would almost say how the restaurant feels. So when we set out, it was fine dining with a little bit of party. We wanted really interesting, elevated Italian dining and service to be impeccable, but for it to be a little bit fun still. We didn't want white tablecloths. We wanted people to come in.
Not intimidating.
Yeah, not intimidating. As the year divulged and unfolded, we had managers in there. Laurence and I we were co-owning with Dad. So it was very much we go in, the staff know us, la-di-da, I'll talk to some customers. But when push came to shove, and after, I think, and not that anyone had failed in the role, it was just that the description of the role needed to change for West End. Yep. Because no one was going to succeed with that description. Como became heartless. And I believe Como, in my personal opinion, Como's a girl. But she became heartless. She wasn't warm, wasn't fuzzy. I then stopped enjoying even dining there. Yeah. So when we came in, I was like, no, my traditions and my values, and it may not be the finest of service when we do it, but it's to connect with people. Yeah,
strip it all back and bring meaning back to it.
Exactly, and not to be when you do go to a finer dining rate, you're never going to really sit there with your server and have a one-to-one real conversation. I think the closest I've come to is at Moscone with Mark. But I very much seen him do that with his customers as well.
Mark's
and it's becoming personable and relatable to them. So I knew, I was like, right, the messaging and the meaning of Como has to change. It's Laurence and I. This is our first child, as I like to call her.
Yeah, I think.
And what we did is that we became more personable to our customers. We dropped
and
that
staff too.
And staff too.
I was just about to ask that question. So let's segue into how did you bring your staff along for the journey?
Well,
that's your vision. That's your vision, right? And it's very admirable. It's very mature. And way beyond years that you can see that, right? Yeah. But now let's talk about the people. How do you get the team to support? The coach and the manager can have all the vision in the world. The players don't get in the arena and they're not on board. How did you bring the team along?
Because the coach and the manager have to show. Because when we did, and as well, the staff would look at, the owner's daughter's now coming in to try and save the day. What was she going to know? And I'm full foot nothing, and I'm a little girl. So I'm not very intimidating, and I knew the only way to do this was not being a precious dandelion. We needed to be in the trenches with our team because we were.
Be part of the team, step one. What
step
else?
up, morale. So little things on Friday, Saturday nights, leftover wine, everyone sit down. We're having a drink together.
Great.
Bringing everyone.
Tony from Tartufo does that well. After every Friday and Saturday night service, the team eats together. They all cook. He cooks for them. Sometimes somebody else will cook, but they're always eating together, community, family.
And that's what then we do on Sunday night.
Beautiful.
It's Sunday. I call it Sunday nights at Nonna's house. So guys, we have Sunday night dinner because we spend that much time together, and it's now a small team.
Perfect.
That we are. This is
and what you
our
find.
Family.
Have you found that the right people stay and the wrong people go?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's what I say to people, and for listeners, don't compromise on your values. That means a lot to you, what you guys do, everyone around the table, big bowl of pasta, because it's not about the pasta, right?
No, it's
about the meaning behind it. How many great steak restaurants there are in Brisbane? There's that many, it's not funny. How good can a freaking piece of steak get? I'll tell you how good. As good as the person that serves you, as good as the ambience around, as good as how comfortable you feel in the environment. That's how good that steat gets, because the best piece of meat can taste like crap if it's served by the wrong person with uncomfortable chairs and the wrong ambience with music too loud, or too dark and I can't see what I'm eating because there's no lights, and that's what they get the small things wrong because they focus on the wrong things. And that's what I'm hearing here is you guys are focusing on
I
right
spend a little bit more time on the floor
we both do.
than Mickey probably, but I know Mickey, what she does with tables and with people in the restaurant, it adds so much value.
Yeah.
And not in a just a business way, but for the restaurant. I think it's so special that guests come in, and it's young people, it's old people, it's everywhere in between. They love it.
The key things there is that you're in your business, right? You're still working on it, which is the last part I want to cover. You're still working on your business, but you're in your business, right? And so you can't do one without the other. Let's just put that there. I mean, I've been in this industry 30 plus years, right? I'm turned 50 this year. I started at 14, right? And I started washing dishes. My brother used to own Naples Pizza Restaurant. So I've been in the game for a long time, right? And then I went to work for Cosmopolitan, the first ever roasting house in Brisbane, busiest cafe in Brisbane. And, by 17, I could cook full cafe menus, right? So I've been in the trenches and worked the way through. And what I've said to people is you can't just work in the business. But you can't just work on the business. You've got to combine the two and you've got to fuse it. And that's what I'm hearing there. And the key thing that's really standing out, which to me is this, people talk about silver bullet, secret sauce, secret, whatever the fuck you want to call it. It really is one thing, is generate emotional engagement.
Yeah.
With your people, which you do with your teams, with your customers, generate emotional engagement. And if you do that, then people, look at Johnny, in his heyday, Stephen Neal, still now, I haven't seen Johnny for a while, but in his heyday, very good with that emotional engagement.
Yeah.
You look at old school waiters, the team at Del Ugo, amazing. Why? When they were running Del Ugo, why? Because emotional engagement. Everything was about emotionally engaging with people. And they're the restaurants, New Farm Deli. You look at all these icons that have been around for a long, long time.
Yeah.
The key ingredient is emotional engagement. They know how to generate warm, fuzzy, and engagement.
And I think the way we run our floor too, I am wanting to change because when I go do my thing, so what Laurence is sort of talking about is that at the beginning of service, I don't normally have a section, but I will do like running, making sure everything's ready and clean and tidy and whatnot. But at the end, when I'm running food, I sort of get to know, I get the feel of the floor. And each night that floor is going to be different. You don't know who's walking through your door. And as while you're putting food down, I can sort of map out in my head, okay, when it dies down a bit, I'm going to go talk to that table, that table, that table. Because I know some tables, I am a talker. And some people, they don't want a bar of it. They're like happy doing their own thing.
And customer.
Exactly. Read the room. My dad's always taught me this.
So tell me your top tips, because if I don't, you're going to keep talking. And we're going to be here for another 4 hours. And listeners are going to go, what's going on?
Top.
But I love the passion, I love the energy, and I love the wisdom at such a young age. So imagine what you're going to do in the next 10, 20 years, right? Because don't stop where you are now. I say you got to look in the revision mirror and be grateful, but you got to look forward and really start. So tell me, you're both going to get a shot at this. Top tips that you would give a listener from your perspective. Don't look at Mikella. Look at Mikella. Look at yourself. Well, tell me from your personal perspective, what are 2 things that you would give the listeners, and what are you most excited about in the next 5 years?
I think particularly as young entrepreneurs, it's really important that we came to this with no rules and no expectations. Challenging the old ways. I know, yes, the emotional connection will never leave hospitality. It can't. Otherwise, as you say, it
won't be called hospitality anymore.
Of course.
It'll be called transaction.
And exactly. And that's why that QR code crap and whatnot in different places, it works in some places, but it needs to hospitality needs to stay in the way it does in some ways. But for us, I think 2 key things is always keep going in terms of trends, and don't try and copy every trend. One person did tiramisu at the table, now every Italian restaurant does it, right? And that's great because it's fun and people love it. But don't be afraid to create the trends. Don't be afraid to be wrong. Try again, make it right, and create something of your own. I think that's the flavor of the month for me. And in terms of where we want to be in 5 years, I just think for us, it's just really important that we continue with the mindset like we're fresh. like we've never done this before.
Keep reinventing yourself.
I never want to be in the predicament where I've been in the game so long that I'm out of touch with it.
Yeah.
And I know I'm saying this 2 years in, but I think a lot of older restaurateurs and people in hospitality like to hate on the new way of marketing and bringing hype and things around venues such as like the James Street Food and Wine Festival. That's an amazing marketing piece that they make money off. And that's something that some restaurateurs might not want to be involved with, or might not think it's cheap, or, using foodie influencers and things like that. Those people are to influence this, the community, and they're to bring people to your venue, whether it's a video online.
Well, they're all resources, right?
Yeah. And you have to harness those resources as they change over time. And now it's about using social media, and in 5-10 years, it might be about using AI. I'm not sure, but
good stuff.
I think it's important that we keep moving.
Good. Mikella. So 2 things for listeners to inspire them, to key messages for them, and then what's your next 5 years look like for you?
I think there's only really one key thing for me, and it's when you're ever going to embark on something new, as long as you have the heart and the passion behind it, and like you said, you move with meaning and purpose, that there are going to be times where you are faced with things and you think, that's it, shut the doors, light a match, see you later. But it's never as bad as it seems. Always to remember, be a duck, paddle fast and run a sprint underneath, but keep cool, calm and collective. Your team looks to you and you are their rock as well. And when you do it in partnership, actually there would be 2. If you're doing this with your partner, you guys have to be a great team before anything else. And I think that goes with parenthood as well. Yeah. Your relationship. Solid and alignment. And sometimes it's not always. Like, we are only human. I think our staff will know if we're having a slight... But we do it well. I don't think the floor would know. We do it while smiling.
Do it well so far. Which is
so far.
Still got a lot, as the Italians say, still a lot of salt to eat and share. No, but you're on the right track. And next 5 years, what does it look like for you?
Next 5 years, I think head down, tail up. I have no idea. I have no expectations. Yeah. The ball is round. It is a FIFA game. I have no idea what way it's going to go, but I'm just to be ready and prepared and excited, and not to – there's so many times in life where we get opportunities and we think that, oh, no, I'm to embrace everything that comes our ways. Each and every one of us is dealt a different hand of cards. How you play with your cards in life, you can end up with a good hand or a bad hand. It's sometimes up to your dealer, and sometimes it's up to how much risk you're wanting to take. But believe in yourself.
I love it. And that's a perfect note to end on. Give it a crack. If you're sitting there thinking, should I not?
Just do it.
Look at the cards you've got in front of you. Get comfortable with your worst case scenario, and don't let anything hold you back. Guys, can I say that's been amazing? A perfect way to round off the whole celebration section of, celebrating people like yourselves that are getting in the arena, having a go, and are doing it. And you're not doing the talk without the action. There's a sign in my office that says do more. And people say, why do you have that? And I said, because a lot of people walk into my office talking a lot of shit, and I said, I don't do talk fests. I love bringing people like yourselves. That's why we call it been there, done that. You guys are in there, you've been there, you've done that, you're still doing it. We wish you nothing but the best. I wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you.
And thank you for being on the show.
Oh,
thank you very much.
Anytime.
It's been a pleasure.
Good stuff.
It's been fun sharing.
You've been listening to the team at Como. So we've had Mikella and we've had Laurence on the show. I hope you took some great nuggets away from there. Go and visit the guys. Go and see their business in action. See what Como's doing. They're bringing a slice of Italy and the nonnas to your table for you to enjoy some good, authentic Italian food and ambience with great hospitality. These guys are in their 20s. Go and support people like this that are having a go. This is what this country needs. This is what we need more of. This is why I do what I do. And let's get behind and support people. So until next time, you've been listening to Phil DiBella, and this is another segment of Been There, Done That. That's a wrap for today. Keep listening for more episodes of Been There and Done That. The Coffee Commune is here to help accelerate your potential. We want you to be better tomorrow than today. Until next time, you've been listening to Phil DiBella. I'm the founder and managing director of the Coffee Commune, a place where the coffee community comes to collaborate.